Welcome, everyone. It's Kevin Michael Schmitz here, and I am in Massy-en-Cambrai in central France, and I'm here at my 49-room castle from the 13th century, and we are going in depth today about high fashion photography, especially photographing here in Europe, and how to photograph in a major fashion editorial or ad campaign in Paris, and to be able to create some of the most mind-blowing content that you could possibly imagine, because this is really the capital of fashion. Today, I'm really going to encourage you guys to ask a lot of questions. Also, feel free to share your websites. I'm very interested in knowing more about what you guys want to achieve, what type of photography you do, and what your photographic goals are. Because for me, all along, my dream was to be a fashion photographer. And I started out doing my bachelor's, my MFA in photography, and I just went full force into being a fashion photographer. I did, even though I went to school for it, I also started out and worked my way up from essentially from the very bottom. But throughout time, I was able to develop a look, feel, and style of the type of work that I do now. And it's essentially a sense of timelessness, a sense of feeling, a sense of classy sophistication. And I create content that really tells a story, because that's really what high fashion editorial is all about: telling photographic stories. So I'm going to encourage you guys to also start being more of a storyteller, and instead of just an image maker, because I'm taking it up a notch to a higher echelon of what just being a photographer is all about, because I'm creating mind-blowing content that is telling a story that where I almost feel like I'm inside of the scene with the models and creating these in just spectacular moments. Now, this story, for instance, this was actually shot at one of the New York fashion photography workshops that we direct. In fact, we have one coming up here in a few weeks in New York in mid-September. And we bring in supermodels from Vogue, Vanity Fair, the Versace campaign, Giorgio Armani, just like these girls here. I think one was from the Versace campaign, one from the Giorgio Armani campaign. And we were able to shoot at a castle, very similar actually to my castle here in France. But this is a castle out in Long Island, designed to be identical to King Henry VIII's palace from the 1500s, and we're able to tell this unbelievable, elegant story. Now, what's interesting about a series like this is I want to create a lot of almost this kind of nuance that, yeah, I want a sophistication to it. I want the wardrobe to tell the story, but I also need the models to feel powerful. Now, this is something that a lot of photographers make mistakes at. I would say one of the most common mistakes photographers make is not posing the models correctly. And for me, I'm all about storytelling, art direction, and posing. In fact, we actually offer an absolutely epic photographic workshop specifically on storytelling, posing, and art direction. And for me, this is something that I have developed over time, and it's something that you can too, and I can help you with that along the way. But when we're telling a story, we want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And throughout the story, it needs to somewhat at least make sense. And I want to open up, and I also want to make sure that generally, especially if it's one model in a specific page of an editorial, they need to be in a different outfit for every single page. So that's part of the storytelling, is your storytelling with the fashion, because that's what fashion photography is all about. We're storytelling with fashion. Okay. So when we are creating these stories, it has to do with the designers that we're pulling. It has to do with the nuances, the expressions on the models, and the moments that we're capturing. Okay. And with these models, one of the things that I really wanted to show was power, was a sense of powerful women strutting along and capturing them right in that walk. Okay. This is not easy to do, though, because oftentimes a photographer isn't at the right height. They're maybe too low, getting a lot of distortion where it's like all leg, or they're too high and, it kind of shrinks them, or they're not shooting with a fast enough shutter speed. which is a very common issue when you're shooting with too slow of a shutter speed. So in this case, I'm shooting at about 1/800th of a second to make sure that I'm capturing that model in that moment so that every aspect of the image is razor sharp. And this is very, very important. So I encourage you guys, when you are shooting something that is uh, a fashion editorial where there's movement, definitely make sure that you're shooting with a fast shutter speed. But then also the other issue is, me personally, I also love to shoot things with a very deep aperture. So that sometimes becomes a challenge because obviously those are, reciprocal of each other. So obviously the deeper the aperture, meaning, if you go from, instead of shooting f2.8, if I want to shoot at f13, something very, very deep, it's going to look beautiful because you can see everything in the background. You see how razor sharp this background is. This is shot at a very deep aperture, but also a fast shutter speed. So in that case, what you're going to need is you're going to need to shoot on a bright day with a lot of light. And also I encourage you to also up your ISO. Now, these days, our cameras are good enough to shoot with a fast, with a, higher ISO. But, years ago when I started out, shooting more than a 100 ISO is very problematic because it becomes very kind of muddy, and they had a lot of problems. But these days, I'm shooting with the Canon R5, and I can go with a very high ISO, and it still looks absolutely buttery. It looks amazing and crisp and clear and incredible. So I definitely encourage you guys to start thinking about that and creating content that has has everything sharp in the image. And especially, for instance, this is editorial, but if I was to shoot an ad campaign, trust me, you can't shoot an ad campaign at f2.8. It just doesn't happen. Because if I'm, capturing this model and I'm photographing her and I'm shooting her eye at f2.8 and she turns her head, okay, now it's not in focus. And now you don't have focus on either of the eyes. It's a big problem. And even if you are focused on the eye, now you have an issue where you don't have focus on the wardrobe. And the wardrobe, of course, is critical, key, and important because that's what you're selling. So if you're shooting for a client and you're shooting a campaign and you have blurry images, or it's sharp in the eye but the wardrobe is blurry, they're not going to be interested in working with you. It's a huge problem. Okay, so definitely start thinking about shooting with a deep aperture, because I know a lot of you don't. A lot of you are shooting with f2.8, f4. I want you to shoot f11, f13. Start thinking about that. Also start thinking about shooting with a faster shutter speed when you're shooting a lot of motion. And I love to shoot motion, whether I'm shooting lifestyle or fashion. I love to shoot motion. It is absolutely a wonderful way to go. Okay, now I also want you guys to start asking some questions too in the Q&A, not in the chat, but in the Q&A. I love to hear your guys' perspectives, and I want to see what kind of what you guys are interested in learning today, because I know a lot of you are very interested in becoming world-class published high fashion photographers and be able to shoot for major campaigns. I've been very blessed. I'm fortunate. I just shot 2 campaigns for Burberry this year. I also have a campaign coming up for Giorgio Armani. I've shot for Zara. I've shot a ton of lookbooks for all types of different designers. And then I also have all kinds of swimwear brands, beverage companies that I shoot for, hair products, beauty products. I'm shooting a lot of major campaigns, but I want you guys to ask questions. I want you guys to tell me what it is that you guys are interested. All right, now the great Crystal Bear, she says, I should probably know this already, but when you say telling a story, do you mean a theme like the feeling of power, strength, flirtatious, spring break, sexy, like out in Miami Beach? Those are some of the concepts. Okay, so Crystal, those are it's exactly that. That's a sense of an emotion that goes along with a story. So that definitely is part of a story, Crystal, and you could base an entire story around power or strength for sure. But you have to go a little bit more in depth on that. Okay, very important to go in depth and to create a story that is from beginning to end, it tells everything about the emotions, the who the models are, what the kind of story is happening from beginning to end, all of that. Now, and I'll give you an example, Crystal. This is a story that I developed called Palace Couture, and I actually love this one, Italian Palace Couture. Now, I'm going to actually shoot a story like this, just like this, but here at my French castle, and we're going to be doing this where we're going to bring in this unbelievable wardrobe, just like you see here. But if you notice, this is a creative brief, and this is something that I'm also happy to send any of you guys if you're interested in receiving a creative brief like this. I have bazillions of these that I've created over time, and I've pitched them to magazines to basically shoot the editorials for them. Because listen, magazines are, guess what? They don't have a lot of money, and they don't have a lot of time, and they're always overstretched. So magazines desperately need concepts. So oftentimes I pitch them the concepts. Now, a magazine can come up with their own theme, and oftentimes they do. They have the men's issue, or the white issue, or the fashion issue, or the whatever. However, if we can create a story around the themes of a magazine and pitch them a series of creative briefs, the magazines are going to be more likely to work with us. And I think that's really important. So, for instance, this story, this is something that I can pitch to a magazine. I'm going to share this with Vogue. I'm going to share this with Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar, also all the foreign ones. So like, Vogue Arabia, Harper's Bazaar, Brazil, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to pitch them a series of these stories about, and shooting here. So I actually own the location. I'll be the photographer. And then also I have, I can bring in the biggest supermodels from Milan and Paris, because I'm here in France. And I'm pitching them the story. So I will pitch these ideas, and oftentimes, Crystal, I'll pitch them 3 ideas at a time. And by the way, to answer your question, you asked about emotion. If you zoom in here is some emotions. So the emotions of this story: glorious regal power. Fear, is there a challenge and conquest after they take the throne? Female models have a sense of arrogance, innocence, and entitlement. That kind of sets the stage. Okay. And there's a little paragraph that I write along with it, Crystal. So I'm actually putting together a story, almost in story format, that I'm going to tell within this this concept. So start thinking about what story you want to tell, and don't just stop with one. I often have 3 or 4 or 5 that I'm going to be pitching a magazine, and then they can go along with one, or sometimes, believe it or not, they might pick all 3. And I've had that happen. Early in my career, I used to do these I used to shoot a ton for all these California magazines. I shot for 944 and Cool America, and we shot for LA Fashion Magazine. I shot maybe, like, I don't know, 8 covers of LA Fashion Magazine. And when we shot for these magazines, I would pitch them 3 at a time, and they would be like, yeah, I want this one, and I want that one too. And I went out and shot all 3. And sometimes I traveled for them. I shot them in Istanbul, or I shot them in Milan, or I shot them in LA or New York. And believe it or not, that they actually are more likely to go with you if you have various choices to select from. So start thinking about that. And I'll show you a couple others, because this is where a lot of the awesomeness all stems from. Okay, this is a story that I'm going to show you next, where it was a Mad Max story, and this one, Crystal, you got to take part in this, so you understand. This is a concept that was actually created by the great Michael Weilet, who is she's actually a Mike Weilet designed this with me, and he came up with this concept that, hey man, I want to shoot this amazing story. Kevin, make it happen. I'm like, okay, Mike, and I know you're on right now. I'm like, Mike, great. Let's make this happen. Let's design the story around you, around your concept. And we created a Mad Max desert fashion editorial, really in line with that whole, Burning Man story. And it's, out in the desert, and it's, got these incredible, ridiculous outfits, and it's totally over the top. And by the way, BK, who is the owner of Number 8 magazine, who is on right now, and he's going to be our panelist today. He's the owner of Number 8 Magazine out of Australia. He's going to be featuring and publishing our Mad Max fashion editorial. So those of you guys that are photographers that are on right now that attended that epic workshop, I know Crystal and Mike Weiland and many of you guys that are also on right now have attended, that were there. If you shot images at that workshop, send them on to me, because I'm taking the best of the best pictures and getting them published with BK at Number 8 Magazine for an upcoming issue. So definitely select your best ones and send them on to me, and we'll make sure they're retouched perfectly and published. And by the way, we got both the front cover and the back cover of Number 8 Magazine for not the current issue, but the last issue of Number 8, which was really incredible. And we're going to talk a lot about that too today, because we have obviously the editor and chief and owner of the magazine. But this was actually shot at our Las Vegas workshop. This was shot by Lance Andrews during our epic fashion workshop in Las Vegas, out in the desert. And we shot at the Red Rocks. We also shot out in the Cracked Earth, and Lance shot these amazing stuff. And so did, we ended up publishing, like, I think 15 of our photographers or something ridiculous like that between the Las Vegas workshop and the Los Angeles Elite Masterclass in the last issue of Number 8, which was really exciting. And we had these massive editorials. This is the cover. We also landed the back cover as well that we shot at the airfield. So that was really, really incredible. And if you guys, any of this catches your interest and you like any of the stuff that I'm showing you today, definitely take part, get involved in what we're doing, because we are creating mind-blowing content, and we guarantee that any photographer that gets involved with us and works with us will shoot the greatest images they've ever shot in their lifetime, guaranteed, at the photographic workshop in fashion and lifestyle photography. And by the way, this is the back cover of Number 8. So anyway, I'm going to get back to a lot of the stuff here in a few, but I wanted to show you some of the concepts that that we're talking about, and basically we went from this amazing, mind-blowing content that we shot that we pitch in a creative brief to actually shooting and then publishing these insane stories that are just out of this world. So without further ado, and by the way, guys, I'm also going to ask some surveys here before I bring on BK, but I want to ask some surveys of you guys, because I have all these amazing photographers on and I want to know your perspectives. So I'm going to be putting some polls out, and I am very curious about first of all, what your photographic goal is. I'm putting a survey out right now in the polls, and I'd love to hear you tell me. Do you guys want to get published? Is it to book a fashion or lifestyle ad campaign? Is it booking more wedding or portrait clients? Is it getting represented by a photographic agent? Is it just traveling the world, having fun photographing? What is it? What's your absolute ideal goal in your photographic career right now, and what's it going to be? So I'm really, really curious about that. I'm really excited, and I'm here to coach, guide, and mentor photographers. So I love to hear all of your perspectives. I'm going to be asking you a whole series of questions here, and I'd really love for you guys to give me your honest perspective and tell me, because I also share these polls with everyone else as well. So without further ado, I want to bring on the great BK. He is based out in Perth in Australia, Western Australia, and he is the owner, editor-in-chief of Number 8 Magazine. And BK, I want to bring you on. You are an absolute delight. Thank you so much for attending. I know I'm here in France. We got such an international thing going on. You're in Australia. Yeah. Most of our attendees are all in America right now. And I would love to hear your thoughts. And first of all, congratulations on such an epic magazine. It is unbelievable, and the current issue is incredible. It's absolutely insane, and the last issue that that we were able to publish with you is mind-blowingly spectacular, and I'm really proud of what my photographers did. And many of you guys are on right now. Some of you guys have been published in this, and it's really exciting to see. So BK, welcome, and I would love for you to tell us a little bit about essentially what you're looking for from photographers, because we have this huge audience of photographers on right now. What are you looking for publishing their images in your magazine? Like when you look at a photographer, what are you looking for in those images, in the story, all of that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you very much, Kevin. First of all, it's an honor being on this webinar with yourself and all of the very talented very, very talented creatives that you've worked with and you've mentored through time. The second last edition, I think it was volume 36 that you had front and back cover on, was an absolutely phenomenal issue. True credit and applause to the photographers, the creative team, the stylists, the models, the hair and makeup, the designers, the assistants, and everyone else that made these epic shoots so fantastic. It was really a pleasure to be able to feature that work because it was different. Now, there lies the word. It was different. It was powerful. It told a story, just as Michael had pointed out earlier. An editorial has to evoke feelings, emotions, thoughts, and it has to try and tell a story. That story is often open to interpretation. The photographer tries to tell one story, the person looking at it will see potentially another story. But that's fantastic because that's like having 5 different flavors of one ice cream. You can't beat it. You know, it is absolutely a fantastic way to have your editorial received. So that way, you know that people have just looking at it in one perspective, they're looking at it in many different perspectives. And I think that's fantastic. The quality of the editorial is really, really important. If you want to get front cover and if you want to get back cover of any magazine, aim and shoot for that purpose. In other words, create content that you know someone is going to look at and go, this is cover material. But then you also must have content that backs up that cover material. When we talk about Kevin's workshops and some of the results from there, it's, you know, the organization and the time and effort that goes into preparing one of these workshops is phenomenal. And it's reflected in the results that come out of it because the team has prepared extremely well for the photographic team that's going to come in there and work and learn. So you're not compromising on anything. Everything's been prepared for you. And all you have to do is to compose, frame, and shoot. How much easier can it be? Well, not necessarily easy, but a lot of the hard work has been eliminated from it. And the results just speak for themselves. I think that creating content that stands out, that tells a story, is put together with talented creatives, top models, top hair and makeup people, and you come along and you just put the icing on the cake with your photography.
Well, I appreciate that, BK. And we're looking at this epic image right now from the desert. And this story, I mean, because you're the one who selected these, right? I mean, you we created these amazing stories. We sent them to you. You fell in love with it and you published this. Why did you choose this epic story out in the desert?
I think it was certainly not something that we had published very much of. I mean, there have been some smaller editorials, you know, featured around desert and things like that, but nothing that quite came across like this. And I think one of the reasons why this editorial stood out and made a huge impact visually on us and the creative team behind number 8 was the fact that the complete package was very powerful. The models were stunning. The fine attention to the hair and the makeup, creating variations in the hair looks, reflected with the makeup on the models, combined with the outfits the models were wearing in comparison to what the background was going to be, the posing of the models based on what they were using for props, whether it was a horse or a mule or just their own space or just their own bodies. They were able to work the scene to be able to produce something that was unique to each of their outfits and to themselves. And it just worked out fantastic.
Absolutely, BK. I mean, this is an absolutely stunning story. And this image, you know, absolutely ridiculous, completely over the top. And I'm really proud of all of our photographers that took part, because we published several photographers. Tell me a little bit about that aspect, because it's a little bit unusual, but one of the cool things that, Number 8 does is that, we'll shoot this epic workshop. We shot over the course of 5 days, all these similar locations out of the Cracked Earth Desert, but also out at Red Rocks. But we shot all these epic scenes, all these world-class top models that we flew in from around the world. We had models from LA, New York, Amsterdam, Miami, and we shot out in the Las Vegas area. But what's interesting, what you did, BK, is that you selected images from a series of different photographers, but all from the same story. So we compiled them all together. And how many pages was that? How many pages was this story? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, it was something around 45 to 55 pages.
Wow.
I mean, that's huge for our magazine. I don't think we've published an editorial as large as that. And wow. This editorial was made up of what, 7 or 8 or 9 different photographers, yeah, and about 8 or 9 different models, and a creative team backing them up of about another 10 people. I mean, can you honestly say to yourself as a photographer that you can do something like this every day or every weekend? Definitely not. It's a very unique opportunity to be able to turn up on location and to be able to work with creative talent like this and to produce results like this. So, I think you're on a winner if you attend these workshops and learn from them. The most important thing is not to turn up there thinking you know everything that you need to know. The important thing is to listen to everyone and see what they have to say, be mentored, be led, and you will learn.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate that, BK. And I mean, I'm proud of that you also were able to feature so many photographers, because, the story was so epic. And I'm really excited about everything that got published, because it took a long time. We went through this round and round and round, and we tried to get as many images and story going on as possible. And I know, I think I initially selected, like, I don't know, 16 to 20 images, but then it ended up becoming so much more, because I think you must have selected so many more that you were just like in love with. And he selected so many. I think there ended up being about 32 images, with like 45 pages throughout. And because of that, the editorial kept getting bigger and bigger. And I'm really proud of what we're able to do. And also all the photographers that got featured. Now, one of the things too, though, I want to just throw this out there. If you notice, we had several photographers featured in this, but one photographer that got featured more than anyone else, his name was Lance Andrews. And the reason Lance got featured is, yes, his images were spectacular, but he also turned them around really quick. And even though a lot of great photographers, they're shooting mind-blowing images, but they sit and they mull over them too long, and they retouch them too long, or they don't go them over to me. And I put this out there. I'm like, hey guys, I have this guaranteed editorial number 8. Send me your best pictures, and I can get them published by this deadline. And only like a few photographers send in their images. And I'm like, are you crazy? I've given you the best opportunity. And hence Lance got the cover, and Mike Weilet got the other cover, because they responded, and so definitely when you're shooting for magazines, they have stringent deadlines, and make sure to always get them in well before the deadline, so the magazine has time to prepare. But these images are incredible, and absolutely stunning. I'm just in love with the story and everything that we did here. And this was a little unique because it was kind of multiple stories kind of put into one, but it still works really, really well. I mean, the images just speak for themselves. They're what I would call, BK, I would call this iconic. I would call these images iconic. They're not just great fashion images, they're iconic, and it's Vogue level. And yeah, I'm really proud of the quality of Number 8 magazine, and the ability to publish such world-class content and feature it. It really shows to the classiness and quality of Number 8. So so anyway, so BK, now when we were shooting this and selecting this, can you give any words of advice to photographers as far as if they want to finalize their images and to put them together, is there a certain format that you like to see them in? Like, do you want them to put together like a PDF like this so that you know the layout of it, or do you just want the images themselves? Because that's, you know, if photographers don't really know sometimes what way you want them
Yeah,
to see.
absolutely. It's really simple. The first thing is send them in full size and images only, 300 ppi, 300 ppi or DPI, and sRGB, and that's it. It's as simple as that, full size. The reason why we say full size is that then we can do the layout. We know the page size and everything else. We can do the layout. We can zoom in, zoom out, and we can work with the image and try to get something that fits and flows, but does not look as though it is repetitive. If you look at the layout, essentially the slideshow that you see here, or the slides you see here, you will see that no look is repeated one after the other. No model is necessarily repeated one after the other, because we want every image to evoke fresh reactions and fresh impressions rather than having two perspectives of the same dress. That's boring. Okay, so when you do photograph as well, keep that in mind as well. Don't, this is a mistake I make, Kevin. I'm happy to admit it. Whenever I photograph, I always frame everything really, really tight, which means when it comes to a magazine, the magazine editor is sitting there going, shit, I've got no room to play. I can't zoom, I can't move this, I can't stretch this out anymore because I've got no room to play, you know? And I sit there and I go, oh, and I do the same thing with my shoots. I frame really tight. So just frame a little bit looser. Give yourself a little bit of room to play around with so the magazine can then, you know, expand the image and play around with it a little bit, position it slightly to one side or another. So give them the opportunity to play with the image a little bit. Yeah, that's about it. And retouching.
That's brilliant. BK, I want to second that. I love what you just said. Stay a little bit wider. I mean, I totally know what you mean, especially our photographers that are accustomed to shooting portraits or headshots or whatever. They're used to getting in really tight. And your suggestion to go a little bit wider so that the magazine editor can, you know, has a little bit of room to play with the layout, because the page layout is going to be a little bit different than what your camera shoots. So genius idea. Thank you so much for mentioning that, because that's a tip and advice that I recommend all of you guys on listen to BK, because that's really, really important.
And the other thing also is we like the images to look relatively natural. Okay, we don't want the girls and the men and the women to look like mannequins, but at the same time, you don't want a face like mine unedited in a magazine. Okay, it ain't gonna look pretty. All right. So there is some level of retouching that is required. If everyone was as stunning and as good looking as Mr. Kevin Michael Schmitz over there, then we wouldn't need any Photoshop. Photoshop and Adobe would be out of business.
Oh, you're looking stylish, BK. Look at this. Your scarf and
not
shirt.
You're
looking good.
Have makeup.
You belong here in France.
Yeah, we adore Adobe. Don't be afraid to use it. Retouch, make the skin look beautiful. Give your image that final polished look that belongs in a magazine. Okay.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Okay. Well, excellent. And BK, I really appreciate this. And by the way, you know, we've got a lot of really great responses to all of our polls. I appreciate if you guys haven't responded. Please respond to the polls, the surveys. That's really helpful for us as well. One of the things that BK mentioned was the scale of the production. You know, one of the reasons he really loves publishing our stories, he published 2 in the last magazine. He's got another 2 to 3 that he's going to be publishing in the next issue from our epic workshops, including lifestyle stories as well as the Mad Max story, is that you know, he has the scale of just over the top ridiculousness. You know, when you see images like this is very expensive to produce. These you know, these type of horses, to have these brought in, the amazing wardrobe, shooting out on a cracked earth desert, flying in this model from the Netherlands. I mean, it's pretty insane. And because of the scale and the quality of the production, it allows for something that's so epic and so grandiose that it makes it easy for BK to be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll publish that. I'll publish this. Oh, okay, I want to get more images, more images, more images. He has so many that he wants to publish, because when you have models like this, you know, it deserves to be in glossy print magazine. which is really special. And I think that the scale of the production, I mean, just like right now, I mean, I'm producing shoots here in France at my castle, and the scale of what we're doing here is astronomical. I also have 2 TV shows that I'm filming here. My show Great Escapes that currently airs on CBS. And I just found out that we're slated for another 20 episodes, which is fantastic, that will be airing in fall of 2023. And I'm excited about that. So it means I'm going to be traveling around the world a lot more and doing another, a bunch more of this epic stuff, including featuring an episode here at my castle, as well as some of the content we just shot in the Maldives, as well as going to French Polynesia, Australia, the Middle East, etc. So I might be seeing you out there in Australia, BK, to film another Great Escape. And
absolutely, you must come down to Western Australia. I'll fly you to some amazing locations where not only can you film your show, but also potentially run a workshop as well.
Absolutely. I'd love it. I'd love that. And I've been wanting to do one out in down under for years now. It's just coordinating that and finding the photographers that are willing to travel to Australia. So if you guys are willing to travel to Australia, you let us know. We direct these epic workshops based around you. They're designed specifically for you. And that's why we do them in LA, Newport Beach. Los Angeles is all on high fashion, like you see here, and like this is Las Vegas is also high fashion, but LA, we have one coming up in October and it's nearly sold out. We've got and we're also publishing the Mad Max story that I'll be showing you guys shortly, that we're going to be publishing in the next issue. And then we've got Newport Beach, which is all lifestyle. We have Las Vegas, high fashion, New York, high fashion. That's in New York coming up. Follows Fashion Week, so we get the best of the best models that come in town from Europe, and we have New York Fashion Week. Right after that, we shoot our epic fashion workshop in New York. It is mind-blowing. We get the best of the best talent, and I do recommend, if you guys haven't done that one, or even if you have, to come back, because that's always one of our photographers' favorite workshop experiences. We also have our equestrian lifestyle down in DC, Virginia area. We have Miami Beach with Sports Illustrated swimsuit models. And we've got Chicago, which is like a Mad Men vintage story. And then, of course, at my castle here in France, where you get to have a 6-day stay. We have a Michelin star chef, a butler on premise, a masseuse on premise, and you get to shoot for 4 massive scale photo shoot fashion productions with carriages, elaborate carriages, Frisian horses, massive dresses, just like that couture palace story that I was showing you earlier. It was obviously completely over the top and ridiculous. But yeah, BK, this to me personally, this image right here, this was one of my absolute favorite throughout the story, and the video from this also is absolutely insane. We're going to be posting some more of this, and also tagging number 8 as well. But this story with this, this outfit out in the desert with this top model from Amsterdam that we flew in was just absolutely ridiculous. And then, of course, the cover, which is, I'm so proud of our photographers for landing this. And this background, I mean, that's another thing. I get a lot of photographers, you guys, that are landscape photographers. And I tell you, like, listen, being a great fashion photographer on location, a lot of it has to do with landscape photography. I mean, look at right now. I mean, I'm standing here replace spotlight here. Okay, so just like this, I mean, you look at the frame. I am standing here at this unbelievable landscape, spectacular. It's in the evening. It's it's a bit cloudy, but it's this evening light, but this gorgeous landscape, the image that would be a great photograph. But then you bring in the lighting, and you have the model styled properly, and you create a location lit scene with that stunning model in front of the beautiful landscape. It's a combination between landscape photography and high-end portrait photography, and you get a fashion on location editorial. And it's tricky to do, especially balancing the ambient light with also with your strobes or your bounces. But oftentimes one of the strategies that I use, and I use this quite a bit in the images that we were just showing, is I use I expose for the background. So I would expose for this castle, and I would expose for the background. So okay, I get a meter reading on my camera, and then I'm gonna maybe go a half a stop darker. And then I'm going to expose for that background with the model in it. Okay, so I'm going to just take a picture of the background, then take a picture of the background with the model in it. And oftentimes the model, depending on the time of day, but the model is going to be poorly lit. It's the middle of the day, harsh lighting, really intense, lots of shadows. It's kind of brutal. And then, of course, in the evening light, might be really gorgeous, but but oftentimes there's a differential. Maybe the background's brighter, maybe the model's darker, or vice versa. So what I do is, and now I can manipulate and control the light. So for instance, on this cover, it's stunning background, gorgeous landscape out at Red Rocks in the Las Vegas area. It was so unbelievable. We're going to go back there again this coming year. But then I captured the exposure of the background, and then I brought in the model, and it looked a little bit of dim and kind of the light wasn't very flattering on the model. So then I brought in a Profoto B1 strobe with a beauty dish. In fact, I think I used on this scene 3 strobes. So I used a B1 above, I believe a B1 below that, lighting the model from the right. And then I have brought in a rim light from the left side coming back in the other direction. And the great thing about a Profoto B1 is you don't need cables. So it was all battery operated, and we're able to capture this amazing scene, but the model almost feels like it pops out of the frame, which I love. So we create this beautiful landscape image, but then make it a dynamic location lit fashion story, which I absolutely think is powerful and incredible. So anyway, so just some tactics there. And oftentimes, remember, we want the brightest part of the image to be the model's eyes and face generally, right? So because the eye is going to be going to the brightest part of the image. So if the background is much brighter, the eye is going to go to the background. If the model's face and outfit is a bit brighter, your eye is going to go to that. So I'm carefully selecting what part of the image is going to be the brightest part of the image. Now, of course, there's some creative, artistic, nuance there, and you can, blow out scenes in the background and, have that kind of feeling. But it depends. But oftentimes, I want the eye to be drawn right to the brightest part of the image and the sharpest part of the image, which needs to be the model's face and their body and outfit. This is a perfect example. She's wearing a white dress. Light goes right to that, your eye goes right to that. The model's face is illuminated well, and then the background is very accurate, even exposure, maybe even a little half a stop darker, but she's a half a stop brighter. So it makes her pop out of the background without having a blown out feel. But then you go the other direction and you have something with a little bit more of that blown out, in the evening light, you get a little bit of that solar flare kind of look here, but it's a little bit of that feeling that you get, which I also love, but I still am keeping the model's face bright. But then I'm kind of creating this whole mood to it. But oftentimes, that's kind of some of the secrets of making a fashion image. It's very dynamic, and it's going to draw the viewer's eye right in. Okay. Now, BK, while I still have you on, I also want to talk a little bit about the other editorial that we published in number 8, which is really spectacular. And this one was an airfield shoot, and it's something that I feel was, iconic on another level. It was so beautiful, so spectacular, and I feel like, when you see the airfield, it's literally like out of a dream. It's something that it looks like, some of the images are straight out of Vogue or GQ, and it really showcases the elegance of what number 8 magazine is all about. It was really, really breathtaking. And here I'm going to pull up the full spread and share it with you guys. And we had a careful consideration between color and black and white. I argued with BK a bit back and forth because he wanted color and I wanted black and white. And I agree it looked amazing in color too. But I have to admit, even when it's all said and done, the black and white is better. I hope you agree. I think the black and white told the story. It also had some storytelling conceptual components because it's supposed to be this vintage look from this like 1940s fighter jets and stuff, which was black and white. So I think that there was a component of storytelling with black and white and also component with the feeling of the images. This image looked great in color, but in black and white, it looks that much better. And you know what's even more cool, what's even more special than this, BK, is that the photographer that shot this image won #7 Fashion Photographer of the Year award from this image. And this is his very first workshop he did with us, John Wooten. And I was really proud of him achieving that image like this, that not only gets this double page spread in #8, but also he wins this award. And we won 7 out of 10 of the top fashion photographers of the year this last year in America. Were in the One Island Awards were all from the photography workshop series, all ones that I directed, art directed, and produced, and photographed by my photographers. I'm super proud of that. And it's really exciting to see just the awesomeness of what my photographers have been able to create over this last year, because I mean, it's something that's on another level. And when you can say that, you know, we've won 107 awards this year, and One Island Awards, Color Awards, Lurzer's Archive, Communication Arts, International Photography Awards, all these amazing awards. And we've had many, many publications, so many, I think we've had about 12 or 13 magazine editorial publications from the workshop this year. And then the top 10 out of the top 10 fashion photographers in America, 7 out of 10 of them were with the photography workshop series. And these ones specifically were from the New York workshop, which we have coming up in September this month, which I highly recommend you guys jump on. We also have the Las Vegas experience and the Los Angeles Mad Max story, which by the way, a couple of these images that BK is publishing already won. Like Jane Ritchie, she won not only top #4 photographer in America, but #4 photographer in the world award from this image on the far top left. Was #4 photographer in the world from that image. And that one's going to be coming out next in #8 magazine, which is really special. And also the image in the middle also was from Jane Ritchie, which is really spectacular. The images on the from Evan Siegel and also from Joy Stratz on the middle right and bottom, those also won awards. Evan Siegel won #5 photographer in the world, and that was also from a Las Vegas workshop, but a different one that we did the prior year. Really spectacular, and creating these just unbelievable stories. So BK, you know, you've got all these award-winning images. It's really amazing. But why don't you tell me a little bit about this story, this black and white story? What caught your interest here? And what about the story? You know, why did you choose this image for the cover? And what about the story really caught your eye and got you excited?
I think the I'll start with the easier question first. The story. Sorry. I guess the story. I'm a commercial pilot by profession as well, and for me, anything to do with airplanes straight away, you know, tugs at the heartstrings. But this is something that has also been done very, very differently. The wardrobe was, you know, to perfection. Every element of the wardrobe was appealing to the images that were being captured. It is very, very hard for a stylist to get a complete and beautiful look like this. It is not an easy job. It's not an easy job to bring all the elements together so they're all available there to put onto the model and create the images. It was very complete. It was very, very high end. It was very epic. It was, I mean, the words are almost superfluous in the sense that, you know, you're describing something over and over again that is just absolutely amazing. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of effort. The models did a great job pulling out expressions and everything else like that. For me, this image of this girl, of this model, I guess what it presented to me was that there is a tail dragger in the background. It's a tandem aircraft, front and rear seating. She's got her goggles on, she's got a flying jacket on, she looks kind of tired and weary, but at the same time still delivering the image of dignity and class and elegance. Like a World War II pilot who come back from a mission, they're really, really tired, but they don't lose their composure, or they don't give away the fact that, you know, they feel battered and bruised. And this is what that image comes across to me as, you know, a World War II pilot that's just finished a mission, coming out really tired, but not prepared to reveal that they're tired, or, you know, they can't go on anymore. It was that kind of feeling that really came through in that image that I really, really liked.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I totally agree. I love it. And now you also chose a lot of these other epic scenes, and I mean, obviously, we had all this amazing hardware from these hardcore vehicles with machine guns mounted on them, and we had this, you know, world-class top GQ model that was absolutely insane, and these unbelievable, stunning models here. Wardrobe choices were very, very definitive and selective. They were sexy, but yet timeless and classic. I brought in a Vogue stylist, Damaris, who did an insane job of this piece. In fact, she also co-styled the Mad Max story that we're going to go over shortly. And with a costume designer that was amazing. So she did an amazing job. But as you can see, the level of production, the scale and the quality of the production, it's just on another level. It's something that just transcends, and it's something that very, very, very few magazines or even brands are doing something at this scale right now. And that's cool because basically the scale of production, the quality of production is at such a high level. I mean, it's outdoing a lot of even the biggest designer campaigns. And trust me, I just shot a Burberry campaign, and you know we're doing something even more grandiose than what Burberry is doing, which is really, really special. Also, guys, I just wrote in the chat, if you are interested and you love what you see and you want to know more about what we're doing and even learn a little bit about photographic strategy, technical aspects, and basically how to achieve your photographic goals, and how maybe someday you want to be able to, you know, publish in these big magazines, or, you know, get to the point where you become a very successful photographer shooting for Burberry and, you know, buying a castle in France. We have the opportunity for you to set up a one-on-one photographic momentum session with one of our photographic consultants, whether you want to go over your marketing for photography, your business of photography, or your photographic portfolio. We have a team of expert photographic consultants that can work with you personally, one-on-one on Zoom after this webinar, and give you some guidance and strategies. Totally free. We just offer this as a service because I love our photographers to have everything they need at their fingertips, and it's a really good opportunity to achieve more in your career. So please click on that link, set up a dedicated one-on-one Zoom strategy session with one of our team members, and I'd really love for you to talk with them about you know, what you want to achieve and maybe what's held you back to this point, and they can help coach you. And also, BK, I recommend you jumping on there as well. I'd love for you to talk with one of our team members as well. I know you're a world-class photographer, and you're always trying to obtain better and better images. And I know you're also interested in attending the French Castle experience next year, which I think would be really, really special. I think you'd love it and have a time of your life here. So, anyway, yeah, so great comments to all of you guys, and I want to make sure that if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A. I do have a question I want to answer from Ivan Zubkovska. Ivan says, how do you shoot photography and video simultaneously? That's a great question. It's something where oftentimes, Ivan, what's great is at our workshops is we have, when a photographer is photographing, we have a Canon R5 gimbals on standby. These are 8K cameras, or filming in 8K, or we can film in 120 frames a second at 4K. And so that means super slow-mo at 4K. And we're also filming with drones. Now, obviously, when we're photographing, we can film kind of behind the scenes and also from the side from another angle, and that's a really great opportunity. But we also, when the photographers are done shooting, we also give an opportunity for you to go in and film independently, where you can operate the gimbal, film your world-class video reel, just you and the model. So you can photograph it and shoot the greatest editorial fashion images you've ever shot in your lifetime. And then you can go back and film it. And you can film the world-class high-end video content that matches it. And I'll give you an example. This is a video that we just did at our New York fashion workshop. This is also one that I'd like to publish in number 8 because it's epic. So amazing story, and we shot this in studio. We also shot a story on a rooftop over viewing all of Manhattan and creating these just insane stories of these unbelievable malls. And then we also shot out on location in the Hamptons with owls, falcons, eagles, and we had this insane story. Now we shot video here where it was just the photographer director filming it, and then we also, that photographer and videographer got to photograph it too. So you get to match it. And the cool thing about this, Ivan, is that once you create that amazing content, you not only have the photographic portfolio, but you have the matching video content that you can showcase, that I do recommend, because video, as BK, as you know, video is really powerful, especially with social media. So when you have that video that matches your photography, it really is effective with clients. And a lot of times these days, clients are really desperate for you to not only photograph the story, but also film the story. And that's why I offer my film production services and video. And oftentimes I land both the photography and the high-end video content. And I shoot a lot of like commercial reels. I shoot a commercial reel to land the commercial campaigns. So we're shooting, and for instance, here we go. Like this is one of the still images from that story in New York, and then you saw the video component to it. So it looks exactly like that, and you get to tell the full story. So Ivan, it's a great opportunity, and you get to walk away with that world-class video content and video reel that we provide for you. So if that is something that you are interested in doing, definitely get involved in that upcoming workshop. And Ivan, if you can make it to New York, I definitely recommend it. I mean, it is absolutely insane, and the models are just out of this world. Okay, so and guys, if you have any other questions, we only have a few questions on here. I'd love to answer some more. This is your opportunity. You have an owner of a magazine on here, the great BK. We also, myself, who's been a celebrity fashion photographer my whole career, shooting huge campaigns and filming big commercials and television. I'm also the TV director, host, and producer of the show Great Escapes, as well as the TV show Buying Abroad for Bravo that we're going to be filming here as well. So if you guys have any other questions, please ask them on here. What's that, BK?
Kevin, I think one of the things, just going back to your one-on-one sessions, guys, it's one of the reasons why it's a great opportunity to take part in these one-on-one sessions is we often walk around with blinkers on, and we only see what we want to see as far as our own photography is concerned. So by engaging in one of these one-on-one sessions, the person, you begin to have the opportunity to have your own ideas and thoughts and methodologies questioned a little bit, and makes you think about what other things that you could be doing or should be doing to be able to take your work where you want to take it and all the rest of it. So it's a great opportunity for the one-on-one sessions.
Absolutely, you're spot on that, BK. And by the way, this is another image that Enoch Chan shot and also won in World's Top 10 Fashion Photographers of the Year this last year. He shot this at the New York workshop on the rooftop over Manhattan, and it was unbelievable storytelling right here. So this is the photographic version. You also saw the video component to it. Unbelievable, and also won him an award. Now, I have another great question from Matthew McIntyre. He says, hi, when having so many operate different video and photo captures during your personal shoots, how do you make sure you own all the images? Well, anything that you photograph, Matthew, you own. Okay, so anytime you photograph an image, that is your copyright, and you own that image, period. Okay, that is a fact. That is American US copyright law. So anything that you create is yours when you photograph it. So when you're photographing a scene, those are your images. When another photographer is shooting it, those are their images, and you guys can both use your own images for your portfolio and to mark yourself. Now, if you're shooting video, the cool thing about that is that video is a collaborative thing. You can't just film video by yourself. You just can't. You need camera operators, focus pullers. You need, people operating gimbals, drones. You've got, when I'm shooting a commercial, I've got audio techs, I've got producers, I've got first AC, second AC, all these people. Now, all those people they have something to do with the production. So they all can use that video reel. And it's the same thing at our photographic workshops. That's why it's so much value, because you're shooting the greatest images of your life, and you can use that content for your own video reel. And since everybody has a hand in it, everybody's using the gimbal, everybody's using the drone, everybody's operating it, you'll have access to use all of that. And what you're looking for is something like this. This is my reel for my production company.
And epic, adrenaline-filled challenges where it seems there's no way you can make it, but You'll find a way.
So Matthew, this is what you want. This is a reel just like this. It's a combination of my TV commercials, my photographic, the photographic workshops, which is a big chunk of this that you see, and then also my television productions and corporate campaigns. So it has kind of a mix, but you need that world-class content. Now, luckily, I do this, and on top of the workshops, I'm also in TV and I'm also shooting big commercials, but also the workshops themselves, I think, are some of the strongest content in my reel, and it's something that I show off, and I think it's really important. In fact, I'm recutting it all, so I'm going to get a new reel coming out this next year with a whole bunch of new content that's going to look even more insane. But Matthew, I definitely recommend jumping in and joining us, because the scale of this is so epic, and the cost of it is so out of this world to produce your own reels and your own video, that if you have access to what we have, it's a tiny fraction of the cost and you get all the value. Also, I know Randy Perrietti asked, does a magazine have articles written or themes that are in need of photography? I think that's a question for BK. Why don't you answer, Randy?
Hi, Randy. It's a great question. We do run themes occasionally when we have a particular story that we want to tell, or that's normally a global issue. For example, we have a No More War volume coming out soon, hopefully in about 2 or 3 months' time. Obviously, we strongly believe in peace. It's very sad what's going on in Ukraine, and I don't bear a grudge against the people of Russia, because often it's not their fault that the country is at war. So just staying away from the politics, we want to focus on the creatives. We want to give the opportunity for the creatives to be able to put forward images about war anywhere in the world, not just what's happening in Europe, and tell a story that we've had enough of war. We don't want any more war. So that's a theme that's coming out. Another theme that's coming out down the track is about conservation and marine conservation, something that I am very passionate about. I spend probably a good 50% of my life on water or underwater. So it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. So we have those two specialized volumes, as well as a bridal or a wedding focused, wedding centric volume coming out. But other than that, we are fashion and beauty and art. Everything that you've just been seeing here comprises of fashion and beauty. Does that answer your question, Vincent?
I think that definitely answers Randy's question. And by the way, BK, for your wedding editorial, I would love to also feature this wedding editorial that we shot here with this supermodel from that we brought in from Dusseldorf and photographed here at the castle. And we have a full editorial story with about $100,000 in wedding dresses that we used, and it was totally over the top. And this was interesting because for those of you guys who are wedding photographers, what I recommend for all of you to do is, instead of just branding yourself as a wedding photographer, brand yourself as a world-class fashion photographer that just happens to shoot weddings. And that is far more effective, because when you just, go against the competition and you're trying to book those $10,000 wedding jobs or $15,000 wedding jobs or $20,000 wedding jobs, and you just show up as a run-of-the-mill wedding photographer, even if you're very good, those high-end brides that are going to be spending $300,000 million on a wedding, and they're going to have a budget of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to hire their photographer to shoot their wedding. Who are they going to book? Are they going to book the run-of-the-mill wedding photographer, or are they going to book a photographer that shoots this? This is what they want to see. They want to see something where, and trust me, when you're shooting, when you're talking to a bride, every single bride in the world looks at bridal magazines. They do. Every day they look at bridal magazines. They see it in the supermarket. They buy them. They come up with their ideas. They want to, they talk to their mom about it. They want to have their the best wedding imaginable. Well, they're looking at celebrities every day. They're looking at the best of the best and supermodels. So if you don't have supermodels in your wedding portfolio, you're way behind the competition. So that's why I recommend do something like this. Shoot a high fashion image or a wedding fashion story at this scale to showcase to those brides, because they will be far more likely to work with you if you have content like this. it's a complete different ball game if you have content like this. And this is something where we have a lot of wedding photographers take our fashion workshops so that they can create this mind-blowing wedding story that they can now market. So, but excellent. And that's absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you, BK. I really appreciate it. We had some amazing content, incredible stories in the number 8 magazine issue that we published, and getting the front cover, the back cover, and we had 45-page editorial, and then we had this other massive editorial that was, I don't know, probably 30 pages or something, and it was out of this world. Really, really excited about the next one. But just, I wanted to show this image here, BK, because logistically, this is one of the most complex things you can ever do. Okay. We're shooting with a model in massive wind on a runway in the middle of the day. So the light's horrendous, absolutely horrendous light. But we're trying to shoot as many scenes as we can in a day. So we're going to shoot in the horrible light anyway. We are working with the model. We're trying to light the model. We're trying to get her to face into the right direction. This model also wasn't willing to cooperate very well. She had a hard time looking into the sun. So we were like, okay, well, she's not going to look into the sun. She can't. She's really light blue eyes. Let's have something really dramatic where she looks down. And this came out really beautifully because she was looking down, didn't have to look in the glaring sun. Also, we have this incredible parachute, which is totally ridiculous, totally over the top to shoot with a parachute. Really complicated to do this. And you don't just put a parachute out there and let it flow. You have to have somebody handling it. So I had assistants up on a scaffolding, manning the parachute, pulling the strings, making sure it gets inflated properly at the right time. And it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. It was nonstop. And we're just shooting away, creating. But it's very complex to do something like this. But logistically, we made it work. And this is breathtaking. And also, by the way, BK, this is one of the reasons I also wanted to do this story in black and white, because this image looks 1,000 times better in black and white than it does in color.
Yes,
this specific
it is very, very powerful. And just going back to that little thing about black and white and color, I think it's really good that two creatives can have a discussion, and no matter how heated it gets or how passive it is or how quiet it is, we all get together, we nut it out, we make a decision, we stick with it, and we run with it, and we produce something that looks fantastic. And that's what's great. And that's a great thing about creativity. And when you turn up to these workshops, you will have the opportunity to be able to express your own ideas and try and create your own look that you want to create of a particular set or a particular scene. And when you have that ability to create that, then you yourself are starting to think like a producer. You're starting to think like a creative director. You're starting to think like a photographer who has some experience and some knowledge of what he or she is doing, because you're now starting to explore things that you would never have explored previously. So going in here and listening to different people, watching how other people in the group are shooting, looking at how what directions and suggestions and ideas are being given to you by your mentor, Kevin, it's a fantastic way to learn. It is. It really is much easier to achieve results and explore yourself, your own skills and your own creativity in a way that I can tell you now that if I was to go and fund this all myself tomorrow to do something like this, it would be easily somewhere around about $4,000 to $15,000 just for a small scene like this, with the wardrobe, with the model, with the parachute, airfield, all the rest of it. Whereas in this editorial, you've got about 8 or 9 world-class models. You've got amazing, you've got something like 20 different outfits. You've got, stylists and hair and makeup artists and photographic assistants and styling assistants. When you add all that together, that's tens and tens of thousands of dollars worth of talent there at your disposal to create your epic images.
You're so right, BK. I mean, we estimate that, the scale of the production of what we produce is approximately equivalent to one of a full-scale $100,000 a day production. And that would be like, if I was to do this for a client, that would be the typical production budget of $100,000 a day. So when you look at a 5-day production $500,000 budget, $500,000 budget level of scale of production. That is on another planet, and that's why these workshops are pretty insane, and that's why so many photographers come back year after year after year to workshop after workshop. It's amazing, and they get to see the value out of that. So thank you so much, VK, for jumping on. I do have one more panelist I do want to join before we go. So but BK, I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see the next editorials we have coming out, including the epic Mad Max story, which is going to be out of this world. It's going to be something that's very unique, very special, and it's something that I was really excited about. And I know the great Mike Wyatt, who's on right now, it was basically his brainchild. He wanted to create this story, and ended up winning all kinds of awards and being something just completely out of this world. So you know, from the costuming to the location to the model selection, all of that has a lot to do with it. So anyway, so thank you so much, BK, and I'll see you soon. But if you guys have any further questions, please let me know. All right, take care. Okay, and so guys, a story like this with the Mad Max story, this is something, this was shot by Brenda Bravo, one of our amazing photographers. We created just some insane content, and really dramatic. And what was cool about this one was that I produced, and by the way, guys, one of the things I want to make clear here, fashion photography is not that much about photography. It's about production. It's about producing the fashion shoot. It's about telling the story, conceptualizing, creating, and then putting all the pieces together to make it all happen. The actual photographic part, that's the fun part. That's the easy part. That's the stuff that, you know, I mean, it's the payoff at the end that it's like, oh my gosh, finally, now I get to photograph. That's the fun part. But the actual like hard work, and what makes this all amazing is all of the hard work involved with producing it and preparing it ahead of time, making all this magic happen. Like right now, I'm preparing for the New York Fashion Experience coming up in September. I'm, you know, working towards getting all the details together, starting with the model casting, starting with all of the locations, all of that. Then we start with the styling. The style is actually the first thing that we look at, getting the right stylist to make, you know, to put this, you know, into action as far as, you know, what they're going to be pulling, meaning taking clothes from showrooms and stuff, and making all these incredible images, putting them all together. That's what I'm talking about. And that's the real challenge. That's where all of the challenge comes in. And to become a wonderful, you know, world-class, award-winning photographer, that's a big part of it. It's really about the production, and the production comes with having the right connections, having the right relationships, knowing the right people, being able to make all of this happen. And this is one of the reasons so many photographers take our workshops, is because they're dependent on my relationships. I bring to the table a career lifetime of, I know all the top modeling agencies throughout America, all their agency directors, and I work with these agencies day in and day out, booking top models. I've got all the best stylists, all the best hair and makeup and wardrobe, costume designers, vehicles. I mean, this is like, this vehicle, by the way, won the Wasteland Vehicle Award, which is basically like Wasteland World, which is kind of like the Mad Max counterculture. They have this huge event, and they have like, you know, 100 cars enter in that, and the most Mad Max looking car, and this one won it. So we actually got to use that car for the production. We brought in horses that wore armor. We brought in these insane, you know, wardrobe pieces, and we just told this absolutely insane and ridiculous story. And it was so over the top. And by the way, this will be published in the next episode, or I'm sorry, the next issue of number 8 magazine, which is really, really spectacular. And I'm super excited. Now, if you guys have any further questions, please don't, you know, feel free to ask. Now is the time. And I also want to bring on, if she's available, one more panelist, the great Priscilla Evans. And she is a production coordinator for me, who handles and makes this magic happen. She's incredible. She's worked with me now for the last few years, and has created a lot of this magic, from the amazing locations that she's helped me produce, to the insane animals that you see on production, to you know, even fashion and design. It's pretty incredible what Priscilla's been able to achieve, and I'd love for her to jump on and share with us from her perspective. Okay, so now Priscilla, we have now you were here on location with us in the desert, and out at the Mad Max story at the Elite Masterclass. And why don't you tell us a little bit about, when producing a shoot, whether it's here in France at the castle or whether we're out in the desert in LA or in New York. Tell us some kind of strategies that you use, and kind of some of the secrets to making all of this magic happen from a production standpoint.
Yeah, hey guys, it's great to be on and join you from France. We get to be a part of some pretty amazing productions throughout the year in the most ridiculous locations. Often there are new locations that are thrown in, and our teams, like, we come in and we create magic in some pretty ridiculous spots around the world. It's honestly awesome, and everyone that comes has such an amazing time. We've done them in the snow, in the desert, and everything in between. So basically, if there's something that you're after as well, and part of what I do, a lot of what I do is actually talking with the photographers that are coming in advance of the workshop and finding out. That could be, months in advance, years in advance in some cases. The Mad Men and Mad Max, I should say, production you were just looking at there, that one was literally like years in the making, and certainly further than that with the ideas phase. But yeah, it's the conceptual aspects of this are pretty grandiose, so it does take a lot of planning. But when we consult with the photographers, and we find out, like, basically the process starts with actually every attendee coming up with a vision board and a Pinterest page, and can be multiple pages, things like that, that give us an idea of what these photographers that are coming, are after for their portfolios. So actually every workshop, as much as they have a name and, a style, within that style of the workshop that we sort of set, there's a lot of creative freedom and a lot of room for collaboration. So what we typically do is consult with the photographers beforehand. We find out what everyone's vision is, if there's any dream scenes or ideas or animals or locations or, models. That could be ethnicities of models, ages, for our lifestyle workshops, which are much more commercial based. That can be age ranges. Sometimes it'll be mature models, child models, which is a whole other game that you have to get involved with there. But it's a lot of fun. And basically we pull everyone's ideas, everyone's requests, and we create something pretty terrific in the form of this 5-day experience that caters to everyone's needs. So that could be, requests for food stylists, like we did in Newport this year. It could be requests for certain colors of horses. It really does get pretty specific. Vehicles, helicopters, the list goes on. And there's been some pretty crazy requests, all of which we've been able to meet so far. So if there's anything, the dream scene or a dream type of shoot that you've got that you haven't been able to do, or maybe that is just way too expensive to do on your own, as BK was saying, where he basically broke it down. I really liked what he did with the sort of estimated cost per scene. And that's something, typically we don't talk about. But if you were to do it on your own, not just the cost per scene, but the logistical time it would take to produce each scene. With us, the advantage is, and why a lot of photographers come back each year, it's a solid week. If you do the full 5 days, you can do less as well. But for those that do the full 5 days, it's basically a condensed week of coming on to, production that is totally coordinated by someone else. You're paying for that service, and you can be as involved as you want. Sometimes photographers do want to have the experience of being a part of the casting, of models, or understanding more about the behind the scenes so they can actually learn and apply that themselves. Others honestly just don't have the time. And, for them, it's about 5 days. I've got this window to refresh the entire portfolio for the next year. A lot of the content is obviously fresh, for many years after that, but they come to, maybe one per year. And, these are the requests. I'd love to have this because, if I could have this in the scene, owls or, horses, whatever the crazy request is, it would really appeal to my current clientele or the clientele that I'm aiming to target over the next year. So that's typically the process. It's a case of, this is what I'd love to have and promote. And we're not shooting these workshops, for a client. We're not shooting them for someone else. We're shooting and designing these solely around what is going to benefit the photographers or, whoever's attending. Sometimes it's actually, makeup artists that want this kind of content for their portfolios. Sometimes it's strictly videographers. It really is a whole range, but most of the time it's photographers. So the content is really designed specifically to be your content so that you can market yourself, land the next big dream gig, and then we get to talk about it on these kind of webinars and tell all the success stories. And there've been a lot, for those that have dreamed of fashion, and being published in different magazines around the world, globally, internationally, that's all been achieved. We've had amazing rankings and competitions. So in terms of a brand, investment in your brand and in the facade of the brand, and creating a lot of noise around your brand, being able to talk about, all of the current achievements and where those images are reaching, and also having amazing prints to put up in, studios. Honestly, the list goes on, but it's really incredible. And yeah, the logistical side is pretty crazy. But I think that, if you're a busy photographer and you don't necessarily have the time to create something, where you're shooting for 5 days, Miami was insane. We did, I don't know how many scenes per day there with the swim and resort lifestyle, but certainly the number of scenes that we did there would only be possible, to do in a team environment. I think it was, easily 16, possibly more, from some of the photographers that they did, different scenes in the one day, from one day of that. So they're really getting their money's worth. And, obviously for us, any enrollment comes with a lifetime of coaching. It's not limited. It's not like we say you get your 2 Zoom calls and that's it, we're done. We are really interested in those long-term success stories. So I'll often have photographers contacting me with an estimate, like a bid in progress for the next campaign, and it might be a case of, oh, can you proof this? Is there any opportunities here to get a bit more money out of this, or to bring more value to the table? And a lot of the time, the value and the perceived value that you can bring as a photographer comes from what you're showing in that portfolio. So for us, what we try to do, and if we've got any energy left at the end of a workshop week, we haven't done our jobs, but we try to put as much value as possible into that production. And often that's a case of adding elements right up until the workshop, and even during the workshop, during those moments when everyone gets to kind of collaborate and pull all of that creative energy. There's often, cases of, oh, actually, this would work really well. Do you think we could get this? And we'll pull it off for the next day. So, it's pretty awesome what we get to do. It's a huge amount of fun. And yeah, for those of you that have come or thinking about it, I'm more than happy to talk further about details or any dream shoots that you would love to do that haven't happened yet. If there's a way we can make it happen, we're also interested in, pulling together the next incredible story so that we can get it published and get you known.
Absolutely. And Priscilla, right now we're looking at all images shot at our New York Fashion Workshop, which is the next workshop coming up. It's in about a month in New York, and I think there is a space available. So if any of your photographers are interested in this stuff, I would love to see them come and attend this experience and shoot with some of the top models in New York and create these mind-blowing images. So why don't you tell me, because you've been producing all these amazing shoots. Why is New York? Why is this New York Fashion Workshop? Why would this benefit a photographer's portfolio? What would help them transform their career by attending the New York experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the best parallel is all great dancers start by studying ballet, right? So I think the equivalent in photography, especially fashion photography, is you have to start with that classical fashion training, no matter where you want to branch out to. And to me, I've attended New York workshops, and to me, this is like the classical, fashion photography, the training, the kit, the necessities you have to have in that portfolio. It covers everything. We do some in studio work, which, if you're ever angling for anything or wanting to target fashion brands or campaigns in that space, it's something that, you've got to have it in the portfolio. You shouldn't have too much of it, but you do have to have enough to tick that box. And, we do some insane in studio work. For those that are wanting to get out on location and do something, like the images you're seeing here, we've got incredible locations. I think this year we're going to be out towards the Hamptons as well. We've got other locations too all across the area, but we get to go out to these incredible spaces. And if you are a photographer, not just if you're angling for the fashion industry, but a lot of photographers that I talk to that are based in, it might be rural regions, country towns, quieter cities. Often when we're talking about strategies for them to be able to charge more, maybe land more opportunities, a lot of the discussions come back to branding yourself as, in addition to the location you live in, branding yourself as a photographer based in a city like New York, you know, because it has the name, the brand, you know, all of the elements of the fashion photography, you know, world associated with it, because it's New York, it's like the fashion capital of America, and certainly one of the biggest fashion capitals in the world. So for us, you know, we time this workshop around that. It's always the week after Fashion Week. We do it with the best of the best supermodels that are in town. And as a result, you know, the content that we shoot, like this image here, that iconic New York skyline, that's a necessity if you're wanting to be able to brand yourself, you know, as a New York photographer, you know, New York fashion photographer who just happens to be based in, you know, it might be North Carolina or wherever you're based that's, you know, away from there. So for any photographers that are wanting to add to the brand to be able to justify charging more in the fashion space, or to the clients, you know, it might be, you know, the Kinsey clients, or it might be the wedding clients, you know, this is a workshop that ticks a lot of boxes. And I'd say that, I mean, we haven't done the numbers, but to me over the last year, if I were to guess, the last couple of years, I should say, like it would have to be, you know, 60-70% of photographers kind of end up coming to this one. If they don't start with it, they come to it because it's just such a necessity, and they see what we do there every, it's, you know, obviously different content, different locations every year, but the type of content, it really does work for the real estate clients. It works for any clients that are, you know, you're wanting to target and to add value to. And, you know, we last year had owls that we brought in, and in addition to shooting in all of these amazing locations, this was out towards the Hamptons as well. And, you know, the locations are incredible. The access to the production and the best models, especially the fashion models, you know, that's where we're going to get the best of them and have, you know, the pick of the litter, basically. It's pretty awesome to be able to just put in the requests and get the best of the best. And with Kevin's connections and networks, we do get that. A lot of the time, you know, the top tier supermodels that are based there, you might think, oh, well, I can just go there and I'll just work that into the schedule. It doesn't work like that. You know, if you haven't got a portfolio or had the history, you know, developed a brand that's so established that they actually, and these agencies have good connections with you, they're not going to send their best models, no matter, you know, what you're paying. A lot of the time it actually doesn't even matter, even if you've got the money to pay for, you know, many thousands of dollars per model per day. A lot of the time they still won't send them. But with Kevin, you know, because they've all got such established relationships with him, because he's worked with them for all his external campaigns too, you know, they're much more willing. And certainly with the fashion models, it definitely is a necessity to have good relationships with those agents, so that, you know, all bases are covered on big production days, and to find fabulous models that are willing, you know, to do all this sort of work and, you know, work hard throughout the day. But it's an amazing one. It's definitely what I would call like that classical fashion photographers, you know, the necessities you've got to have in the book. And yeah, the content we get there is just amazing. And, you know, the beauty space, the fashion space, you know, everything there, it ticks all those boxes. It's a wonderful one. And if you want to talk further about it or have any ideas, definitely not too late. I've had, you know, crazy ideas thrown at us sort of days up to the workshop. We're more than happy to integrate those. So yeah, it should be a fabulous one this September.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Priscilla. You have been such an incredible source of guidance for our photographers, as well as giving them this incredible experience in producing these amazing shoots, from in studio, like you see here, to with these supermodels, to going out on location, shooting out in the Hamptons and creating these mind-blowing stories. This is, you were attending this workshop and helped me put all of this magic happen. So if you guys, you know, like what you see here, and you want to get involved with us, Priscilla mentioned that we work with you before the workshop, during the workshop, and even after the workshop, and we stick with you. We're not interested in just having people come and take great pictures and leave. We're interested in making sure that you're going to create the greatest images you've ever shot in your lifetime, guaranteed, in fashion and lifestyle, and that often are going to get you published in major magazines, as well as winning major awards, like the 107 awards we won this last year. Even top 10 fashion photographers in America, 7 out of 10 of them were from the photography workshop series. And also coaching you will help coach you, guide you to be able to make more money, to be more successful as a photographer, and to achieve all the goals that you've ever wanted to achieve photographically. So whether you want to work with Priscilla or one of our other amazing photographic consultants on our team, definitely click the link in the chat and make sure to schedule a one-on-one strategy session. You can go over your photographic portfolio, you can go over marketing strategies, you could go over your business plan, you could go over just discussing kind of what your future is and maybe what the challenges are. And I want to see you guys, because I think this would be amazing to help each one of you take it to the highest echelon of your potential, and to be able to shoot supermodels like this and take your photography to the point where you're shooting campaigns for Burberry, you're getting published in major magazines, and you are becoming a high profile agency represented photographer. So I can't wait to work with you guys. And also, if you want to come and experience this epic castle here, that I'm standing in front of, and be a part of it, we also have the French Castle experience that happens in September in 2023 that we have scheduled, and it is a mind-blowing experience that is the most world-class and unique experience in the world in photography, where you get to stay at for 6 days at this epic castle and photograph with supermodels from Milan and Paris, and eat unbelievable cuisine from a Michelin star chef, and have an experience of a lifetime. So guys, thank you so much for joining. And thank you so much, Priscilla, for being such an incredible part of the photography workshop series and making it as special and spectacular as it has become. Over the last 13 years, we've directed over 150 of these elite workshops. And I'm so proud of all of our photographers that have been published, that have won awards, that are achieving greatness and are becoming so successful. And I'm here to help guide you guys every step of the way.